Then at dinner, my mother slammed her fork onto the table. The sound echoed like a verdict. "You have 24 hours to pack your things and get out," she shouted. "This apartment now belongs to your brother." My father only nodded, his eyes fixed on his plate. And my brother, the one who lives all the way in New York, barely caring about this home, was suddenly handed everything. I'm Kelsey, 29 years old, an interior designer. The family penthouse in Chicago, Illinois, where I lived with my parents, had always been everything to me. I had poured my heart into this place, believing it would forever be my one safe haven. Every wall, every door carried the weight of my efforts and the dreams I had nurtured for years. Then at dinner, my mother Stephanie slammed her fork against the table. The sound cut through the room like a sentence being passed. "You have 24 hours to get your stuff out," she yelled. "The penthouse is your brother's now." My father, Gregory, only nodded, his eyes fixed on his plate. And my brother Brandon, who had been living far away in New York, barely caring about this home, was suddenly handed everything. Have you ever felt like the invisible one in your own family? Let me know your story down in the comments. I didn't cry. I didn't beg or ask why. The shock was immediate, but it didn't break me. It froze me. It hardened into a cold, sharp clarity. I just nodded, stood up from the dinner table, and walked to my room. I didn't pack a suitcase. I didn't throw clothes into a duffel bag. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. The screen cast a blue glow on my face, the only light in the room. I opened my personal bank spreadsheet, my secret spreadsheet, the one nobody else knew existed. My eyes scanned the list of automatic monthly payments. Cook County property tax, $4, $200. I clicked. Cancel payment. Penthouse Association fees, $2, $800. Cancel payment. Shared elevator maintenance fund, $500. Cancel payment. Building insurance premium. Cancel. Click, click, click. With every press of the mouse, I could feel another chain breaking. This wasn't just my home, it was my burden. The one I had carried alone in silence for 5 years. And they hadn't just asked me to leave. They had replaced me. I picked up my phone. I didn't call a friend. I called Elite White Glove Movers. "Hi," I said, my voice perfectly level. "I need an emergency moving service for tomorrow morning." The man on the other end sounded hesitant, talking about schedules and prior bookings. "This is a high-value job." I cut him off. "I need a full team with specialty equipment. We're moving a Sub-Zero refrigerator, a Wolf Range custom bathroom vanities, and a full living room suite." There was a pause. "That's a significant move, ma'am." "Yes, and I'm paying your full emergency rate, but it has to be done by noon tomorrow." He took the address. He took my credit card number. He promised a truck and a team of 6 at 8 a.m. sharp. I hung up. I looked around my room at the custom-built shelving I had designed and installed myself. I'd add that to the list in the morning. They thought I was just a guest. They'd forgotten I was the one who had rebuilt the castle, and I was about to take every last stone with me. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Why? Why would I just cancel payments like that? Why would I gut a home I claimed to love? Because it was my last resort. You need to understand what happened 5 years ago. This penthouse, this beautiful, historic apartment overlooking Lake Michigan, was dying. My parents, Gregory and Stephanie, had ignored the bills for years. Not the mortgage, but the crippling association fees and the massive Cook County property taxes. They were on the verge of losing it. A final notice had been posted on our door. The total debt, 100 dows, $50,000. I remember my father, Gregory, just sitting at the kitchen table, his head in his hands, silent. My mother, Stephanie, was frantic, talking about downsizing, about the humiliation, about losing everything. And I, fresh in my design career, just looked at the home I grew up in, and I couldn't let it go. So I stepped in. I told them I would handle it. I drained my savings. I worked 18-hour days taking on freelance projects all night, managing corporate clients all day. For 5 years, I secretly funneled my money into this place. But I didn't just pay the bills. I rebuilt it. I'm an interior designer. This place was my canvas. The old dated kitchen, I redesigned it myself. I used my industry connections to get Calacatta marble countertops for half their retail price. The appliances, all Sub-Zero and Wolf, secured from a commercial project I managed. I redesigned the bathrooms. I installed the custom built-in shelving. I turned a rotting, dated liability into a multi-million-dollar asset. You might ask, Kelsey, why? Why would you pay $150,000? Why would you invest all your skill without a contract? Why would you pour your life into something that wasn't legally yours? It's a complicated answer. When you grow up in a prison that has no bars, when you're raised on the toxic air of emotional manipulation, the hope of one day earning your family's approval becomes the only oxygen you know how to breathe. My silence, my willingness to pay, it wasn't weakness. It was a survival mechanism. I was trapped in what therapists call learned helplessness, a deeply conditioned belief that no matter what I did, I could never escape my assigned role. I was the carrier. I was the fixer. So I paid, I fixed, I sacrificed, because the tiny false hope that one day they would finally look at me and say, Kelsey, you've done enough. We see you. That hope felt easier to live with than the cold, hard truth. That day was never, ever going to come. The elite white glove movers arrived at 8 a.m. sharp. They were fast professional and didn't ask a single question. I stood in the kitchen, holding my clipboard. The Sub-Zero refrigerator, the Wolf range, the built-in Miele coffee maker. They nodded, bringing in dollies and protective blankets. As they began the delicate work of disconnecting the appliances, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mother, Stephanie. Your father told me what you said. I cannot believe how petty and childish you are being. We let you live in that penthouse for years. And this is how you repay us, by throwing a tantrum and stealing. I looked at the text, then at the movers, carefully maneuvering the 1,000-pound refrigerator I had paid for. I didn't reply. Then my phone rang. The caller ID flashed Brandon, my older brother, the golden boy. I answered, putting it on speaker. Hey, sis. His voice was slick-laced with that arrogant amusement he always used with me. Heard you're redecorating. A little aggressively, don't you think? I'm taking what's mine, Brandon. He laughed. A short barking sound. Taking what's yours, Kelsey. That's cute. Look, Mom and Dad are just trying to be nice. You were never going to do anything with that place. You're a designer, not an executive. You don't need a Chicago penthouse. And you do. I do. I bring clients. I have a reputation. It's a smart move for the family brand. You were just keeping the seat warm. He hung up. Keeping the seat warm. To understand why they could be this cruel, you have to understand the golden child divided by black sheep dynamic. In families like mine, roles are assigned. Brandon, he was the golden child. He was the trophy, the shiny, brilliant success story my parents paraded around to prove their worth. Every achievement he had was their achievement. But a trophy needs a pedestal to stand on. I was the pedestal. I was the scapegoat, the black sheep. My role wasn't to shine, It was to carry the burdens. I was meant to be the quiet, responsible one, the one who absorbed all the financial stress, all the emotional neglect, all the ugly secrets. They weren't just being biased. They were protecting the system they had built, a system where Brandon got the glory and I got the bill. My phone buzzed again. Another text from my mother. Brandon is very disappointed in your behavior. You are embarrassing him, and you are embarrassing this family. I watched the movers load the last of the kitchen appliances onto the truck. I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt cold. They were doing exactly what I expected. They were proving me right. The movers finished an hour later. The penthouse was a ghost. My footsteps echoed on the bare hardwood floors as I walked through the empty living room. The places where my sofa, my chairs, and my life used to be were marked by clean squares on the dusty floor. Brandon's words echoed in my head. You were just keeping the seat warm. He was right. They had all seen me as a placeholder, a convenient, useful, and utterly disposable utility. The anger that had been simmering all morning didn't explode. It went cold. It turned into something hard, sharp, and perfectly clear. I was done being their pedestal. I picked up my phone and made the most important call of my life. It didn't ring more than twice. Chloe. Hey, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Kelsey. What's wrong, you sound? Weird. Chloe and I had been best friends since college. She was the one who held my hand when I cried over a breakup, and I was the one who helped her study for the bar exam. Now she was one of the most ruthless family law attorneys in Chicago. I need a lawyer, I said. There was a half-second of silence. Who am I suing, and what did they do? I explained everything. The 24-hour eviction notice. The years of paying $150 0 inches secret. My mother's texts. Brandon's phone call. I heard Chloe typing furiously. They, what she finally hissed, they are kicking you out of a property you personally saved from foreclosure and giving it to the brother who called you a seat warmer. That's the summary I said. Okay, Chloe said, and I could hear the shift in her voice. The friend was gone. The lawyer was here. Stop talking. Let me think. We can put a lien on the property for the $150,000 plus the market value of your design work, but that won't stop the transfer. We need to stop the transfer. Who legally owns the penthouse right now? My parents, I guess, I said. It was my Aunt Patricia's. She passed away about 10 years ago, and I just always assumed it went straight to my dad. Chloe went silent. The only sound was her rapid typing. Patricia, she said slowly. Your Aunt Patricia. The one who actually remembered your birthday. The one who sent you that watercolor set when you were 12. Yeah, that's the one. Kelsey Chloe's voice was tight, urgent. I have a hunch. A really, really strong one. I need her full legal name and her exact date of death. Right now. I gave her the information. Okay, she said. I'm logging into the Cook County Probate Court database. This is a long shot, but just hang on. Don't go anywhere. I'll call you back. She hung up. I stood in the center of the vast, empty room, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the Chicago skyline. The city lights were just starting to glitter against the deep blue of the evening. I wasn't waiting for an apology anymore. I wasn't hoping they'd change their minds. I was waiting for ammunition. An hour passed. Then 2. The penthouse was dark now, and the city lights of Chicago were a cold, glittering tapestry outside the windows. I was just starting to wonder if Chloe's hunch was a dead end when my phone finally rang. I snatched it up. "Chloe?" "Kelsey," she said. Her voice was completely different. It wasn't the voice of my friend. It wasn't even the voice of a lawyer. It was the voice of someone who had just uncovered a crime. "They don't own it." "What? What do you mean?" "They do not own the Penthouse." She enunciated every word. I found it. Cook County Public Records. "Your Aunt Patricia 10 years ago. She didn't leave that property to your parents. She created an irrevocable trust." I sank down onto the cold hardwood floor. A trust. Yes. A trust with one single named beneficiary. You, Kelsey. I couldn't breathe. Your parents, Gregory and Stephanie, were named as trustees. Their only job was to manage the property and pay its expenses until the beneficiary's 30th birthday. Kelsey, when is your birthday? It's in 4 months, I whispered. Exactly, Chloe said, her voice sharp with fury. In 4 months, the trust dissolves and the asset transfers completely and totally to you. They knew this. They had to have known. They were trying to sell the property out from under the trust, cash it out, and give it to Brandon before you ever gained control. This isn't just a family dispute, Kelsey. This is trust fraud. This is a felony. The world just stopped. Imagine for a second what would have happened if my Aunt Patricia hadn't had that foresight. What would a world without her protection look like? The answer was simple. I would have lost everything. I'd be on the street. My $150,000 would be gone vaporized. I would have no legal recourse, no claim, nothing. They would have sold the penthouse, handed the millions to Brandon, and I would be left with nothing but the shame of being thrown away. Aunt Patricia's final act wasn't just a gift. It was a rescue. It was a legal time bomb set 10 years ago, designed to go off at the exact moment I needed it most. And I was not going to let her sacrifice be in vain. Chloe and I were waiting. The penthouse was silent, vast, and completely empty. The locks had been changed 3 hours ago. All the art I had hung was gone. All the custom furniture I had sourced was gone. All that remained was the echo of what had happened. We heard the elevator ding, followed by my father's loud, confident laugh. I heard Brandon's voice, smooth and arrogant, clearly schmoozing. And the view of the lake from this terraced gentleman is truly one of a kind. You won't find another property like it in Chicago. They were here, my family and Brandon's investors. I heard a key slide into the new lock. It turned. It stopped. It turned again, jiggling. Silence. Then a frantic, angry twisting. "What the hell?" I heard my father Gregory mutter. The keys stuck. "Just use yours, Dad Brandon," said his voice tight with annoyance. More fumbling. Mine isn't working either. What is this? Then the pounding. A loud, authoritative knock that expected to be obeyed. "Kelsey," my father bellowed, "I know you're in there. Open this door." I walked across the empty floor, my footsteps echoing. I took a breath, looked at Chloe, who just gave me a firm nod. I opened the door. My father, my mother, Stephanie, and my brother Brandon stood there frozen. Their faces were a perfect snapshot of confusion turning to embarrassment, turning to rage. Behind them stood 2 men in expensive suits, the investors looking utterly bewildered. They stared past me into the vast, empty penthouse, the bare walls, the empty kitchen missing its sub-zero refrigerator and wolf range, the missing calicotta marble, the holes in the ceiling where my custom light fixtures used to be. Kelsey. What is the meaning of this? Gregory finally managed to sputter. Where is everything? We have guests. What have you done? Welcome, I said, my voice colder than the Chicago wind. I believe you're trespassing. Trespassing, my mother Stephanie shrieked. This is our home. Is it? Chloe stepped forward from the shadows, holding a thick legal envelope. Mr. and Mrs. Henderson, I'm Chloe, legal counsel for the sole beneficiary of the Patricia Ellington Trust. You are being served. She handed the cease and desist and the notice of trust enforcement to my father, whose hands were shaking as he took the papers. I turned to the two investors who were already backing toward the elevator. Gentlemen, I sincerely apologize that you've wasted your time. I said, my voice clear and strong. This apartment was never theirs to sell. I looked straight at my father. It's mine. You could see the moment the realization hit them. The moment they understood they weren't just caught, they were trapped. You knew, Stephanie whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. She knew, I said. I walked to my old room, grabbed the single item I had left behind, and walked back. It was the old creased letter from my Aunt Patricia. I handed it to my mother. She knew you would do this. She always knew. My father was white-faced, staring at the legal documents. Brandon was speechless, watching his free penthouse and his big payday evaporate in real time. You have 24 hours, I said, my voice, leaving no room for argument to remove your personal belongings from my apartment. And for the first time in my life, I closed the door on them. The legal battle was short and brutal. They didn't have a leg to stand on. My parents were charged with trust fraud and faced severe legal consequences. I sold the penthouse. It held too many bad memories. The beautiful view of Lake Michigan was tainted by the echoes of their betrayal. It was time to let it go. With the $150,000 I had paid now, recovered from the estate, and the proceeds from the sale, I left Chicago. I moved to Austin and opened my own interior design studio. It's called Patricia Designs. It felt right. My family was completely cut off. They lost the apartment. They lost their reputation when the truth about the trust fraud came out. They lost me. Brandon, I heard, had to crawl back to his job in New York, his big deal having spectacularly blown up in his face. The other day, I hung the final sign on the door of my new studio. I stepped back onto the sidewalk, looking at the name etched in the glass. I felt the sun on my face, and for the first time, I smiled. A real, actual smile. It was the feeling of peace. I'm often asked if I regret it, if I regret losing my family. But the truth is, you can't lose something you never really had. This is my letter to anyone who has ever felt like they were on the outside of their own family, to the person who is always trying harder, loving, stronger, and getting less in return. Hear me. Your value is not determined by their refusal to see it. Stop burning yourself alive to keep people warm who don't even notice you're shivering. It is time to build your own warmth. If this story resonated with you, please share it. You never know who else needs to hear that they are not alone.